All right, welcome in, Cowboys fans. This might be one of the best week one losses we have seen, Cowboys fans. I know there's a lot of frustration out there, but I think a lot of good happened in this football game. Where do the Cowboys go from here? Does the NFC East feel within reach now for the Cowboys? How about a wild card spot? I'm going to tell you why I think it's legit. We'll see what New Bear thinks and get your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's do this.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys? Yeah!
All right, welcome in. Of course, I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan, and with me, as always, is New Bear Lesniewski, former all-academic SEC lineman at Kentucky. Jerry Jones last night, New Bear, quote, "I'm proud of this bunch. If we get this kind of effort, we get this kind of level of play, we got a chance to be a good team." Like the video. If you agree with that, leave a comment down below. If you disagree with that, we'd love to get your thoughts and interact with you throughout the day. But I think the way that Dak Prescott performed, I think he answered a ton of questions about that avulsion fracture, the way Javonte Williams ran the ball, the way the offensive line blocked up the running game. You got answers in that second half defensively, big-time answers. And then coming out of the weather delay, Saquon Barkley had 7 more carries for 1 yard. It's like Eberflus pulled out the Ouija board and asked the spirits, like, how do we solve this Eagles defense there at the weather delay? And damn it, the answers came to him, and somehow he inspired his guys. So for me, running the ball, stopping the run, Dak Prescott playing at least a Pro Bowl level. I don't need MVP Dak or anywhere near it. Just be a good player. There's a lot of things I could nitpick and ask for, but I mean, the Cowboys might have had less holes than what the Eagles had last year. The Eagles just didn't have any drops and didn't have any turnovers. So I feel fair.
The Eagles look terrible. We're still straight to the Bills. They didn't look like a playoff team last night. The Cowboys beat themselves. Yeah. And you look back over this thing and buddy, you asked like 6 questions in there. You always get mad at me when I digress. And then you ask a million questions and I'm like, which one do you want me to start with? But all kidding aside,
let's start with this. Is it okay to be positive? I'm not going to use the word moral victory because
no moral victories in professional sports.
Yeah.
Right? And I know you and I we're starting to get credit. People are starting to realize there's no chit chat, no idle chatter. Let's argue. Let's get into it. Let's come in clean, right? Let's keep it clean and come out boxing. And yes, having said that there's no moral victories, still, this feels different. It feels different because you are going to make mistakes. Dante Fowler gave up that touchdown to Jalen Hurts.
Oh, yeah.
And then he came back and worked his ass off, right? There were guys making mistakes on both sides, but they never quit. Booker got beat. He stayed in there and he fought. He's getting takedowns. Tyler Guyton's out there bitch slapping dudes. They responded to adversity, and it came down to the very last play. Oh, by the way, holding should have been a punt situation. Oh, by the way, that's what I wanted to come back to. Everything you said about Eberflus is true. The Ouija board, I love it. If you waited through the weather delay and you came back around, I was a little bit behind live time trying to catch up, rage texting you, taking screenshots and, shouting into the void. That was the one bugaboo, like at the end of the day, at the end of the game. What the hell were they doing with that play call? Yes, there was holding. Yes, there should have been a flag. Yes, it should have been third and way longer, and they probably throw another stick route to Dallas Goedert and punt, and Dak goes down, and Ceedee can finally catch a cold. Let's go. But what the hell were they doing on that last play?
The Cowboys?
The call was basically like, go get the first down. I thought the slots, if you will, I thought the guys on the edge were going to come. I thought someone was going to screw in. I thought he was messing with them. I thought he was saving that last little.
Hey, set us up. Give me more context. What exact play are you talking about here?
The Jalen Hurts picking up the first down that ended it.
Oh, okay.
Like when you look at the box, they're wrong from the jump. And so I'm looking at this and taking a picture of it and rewinding it and you with myself before I start arguing with others. And I'm like, the math of this doesn't math unless a corner comes or the nick or they both come. Because remember how they started talking about how they were trying to defend the tush push by trying to get that side crunch and then pulling him back. And it worked. I actually think they gave him a pretty favorable spot on at least one of those. But coming in from the side and coming clean and trying to grab him before he can get going or twisting and kind of doing the same thing from the inside out. I was blown away by how bad the very last call was when they pick up the first down that allows them to run the clock out after how good they were for how long they were good after the rain delay. Coming out of the rain delay, they made adjustments, responded to adversity, shut them down. The AJ Brown didn't have a target the whole night. Devonta Smith, nothing. Dallas Goedert was the only weapon they allowed them to have. And hear that again. Like, they only allowed Dallas Goedert to be the guy who was going to get the ball. And then between, refs hanging onto their hankies and guys taking, bad rush angles early, Jalen Hurts is going to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, he is. And he was the difference in the game, and I don't really have many complaints about Dak Prescott. But one thing I thought was very clear last night was how much of a difference it is to have young legs and be healthy and be capable of making one defender look silly, either by juking him or running away from him, and how massive of an advantage that is. And I don't know how you can look at 32-year-old Dak Prescott with the injuries that he's come from and say, this guy is beyond reproach. This guy is limited. Like, the fact that when you need a 4-minute drive to go score, Dak Prescott isn't going to take any first downs at all. The secondary is dropping. They're avoiding chunk plays. Collinsworth says Dak's probably going to have to use his legs here to make this thing happen, and they never even tried it. For me, that's something, and that's a limitation. That's a very real limitation. Shoddy knows the answer to NFL defenses with their speed and their scheme and trying to give up big plays is your quarterback running. Now, to your point on the way that they defended that final drive, you can only keep the Eagles down for so long, but I get your point. And I wonder how much the coaches are looking at today's game and saying, boys, we didn't give ourselves the best chance to win this game. We did a lot of things right, but what happened to all the motion that was prevalent in the first half? Like, up until that basically hurry up they got to get in the field goal, and I thought that was a tremendous job managing the clock, managing the field, managing your timeouts to get down to the 35 and make that chip shot basically for Brandon Aubrey for 52 yards. I mean, that was outstanding, but there were some things in the second half that I'm like, what happened? Did the game get away from you? Did you lose focus? Did you get too cute and creative? I do believe on defense that was a smoke and mirrors job. For a lot of the second half, I don't think your personnel lines up that well at all. So whatever kind of voodoo he was trying to work that had worked, I think, ultimately there's only so many times you're going to keep the Eagles from getting a first down.
So speed in two different directions. One being you're 1,000,000,000% right about Dak. Even on the Tecmo Super Bowl play where he just kept getting away and giving ground and getting away. He was like your dad or your grandpa at the party after he's had a few adult soda pops, and you're just like, man, find a chair for this guy. Like, please slide. I was hoping and praying that he wasn't going to get Drew Bledsoe on the sideline by, and he did. He got down. He protected.
Even the slide looked middle-aged, man.
Yeah. And having said that, he looked as good as he's looked in a long time.
Yeah.
You could put a lot of tape together, and you could say some of the balls he put up last night, some of the windows he fit, and even some of the ones that were just off. I actually think that's why the last throw to Ceedee Lamb was a touch long, is because he was just short up the seam on a couple of those FU balls. He was just short on the ball to span forward, right? There were
off the helmet, off the Eagles helmet, yeah.
Just a couple of inches here or there, and you're an ear hole away from a big play. And I think he didn't want to leave it short, and you're trusting Ceedee to go get it. And I mean, we saw Wes Welker in the Super Bowl, right? And Giselle losing her mind. Sometimes even the best guys to do it don't come through when it's go time. And it's week one, and you walk away from it and you go, okay, so what does this portend? What does this project? What does this look like? And you know what? I can't wait for week 12.
What this looks like is they're more physical on the line of scrimmage on both sides to me.
Oh, for sure.
So it means
Kenny Clark off the bus.
Yes.
Disruption off the bus.
I mean, the Eagles' numbers running inside, I think, was like 2 yards an attempt.
It was like 1.718. It was under 2.
I mean, so you have a lot to work with, a lot of new moving parts, new player coaches.
And that's Toya too, right? That's a seventh rounder, right?
Yeah, and a pretty good game by him, pretty good game by Solomon Thomas. There was a lot of things to like about this game. Now, we can talk about the several things that we didn't like. The edge integrity in the first half was absolutely brutal. It was a carryover from last year. I imagine Eberflus took a baseball bat to a whiteboard or something at halftime there to scare those guys, or those guys into stopping the hero ball. I mean, as the edge cutting in between the tackle and the guard so consistently, and then watching Jalen Hurts go for 15 yards was brutal. The linebackers stink. I do not think there's an answer here, right? Jack Sanborn, I said it the week they signed him, try hard jobber. Murray Jr., one of the most overrated linebackers to enter the NFL this decade. I can't believe that instead of bringing back Eric Kendricks, they traded for Murray on a $7 million salary. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, that was a massive swing and miss. And you could either look at the film or look at the Pro Football Focus numbers and predicted exactly what was going to happen last night against Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So I think if they want to be serious contenders, they need to trade for a different linebacker. Or draft the hell out of one. Guyton allowed 5 pressures. He's pretty dang good in the run game. He's getting better as a pass blocker, but that sucked. But what I'm not worried about, New Bear, is CeeDee Lamb catching the ball.
3.1 seconds to drop, though, on those 5 pressures. Dak was holding the ball a little bit on some of those things. Like, there's perspective wrapped around,
Sure.
If you're going 3+ seconds, that's on QB4 or D4K, however you want to look at it, QB1 D4K. The thing that you have to love is the effort. The thing that you have to love is the fight.
Yeah.
And that's way
culture come into play.
And what I'm interested to see is, how does that play out with some of the guys who didn't make plays? How does that play out with Miles Sanders getting walked by a dude that he's like 20% faster than? How does that play when he fumbles a couple plays later? How about George Pickens and the little devil on his arm catching him with the clothesline, but then also almost going into, you might not come back from that mode when he grabbed the dude's leg in the end zone, right? Like, Pickens
There's a lot of toxicity and not a lot of impulse control in that man.
He's not going to suffer a whole lot of 3 for 30s. He doesn't have a whole lot more of those, because that's what he just did for 3 years in Pittsburgh. And that was one of the things that was very concerning, was where was that bleep you ball? Where, like, they got that pass interference call, and then that was a whisker away from being a catch anyway. I have to believe going into this week and going forward, they're going to come out screaming. There was a play tonight. Who's the kid for the Chargers who can't catch? The first round pick just ran out of my head. McConkey catches everything. It'll come to me in a second. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because earlier tonight with Quentin Johnston, right?
Yeah.
He's a first round pick. He was a really good college player, made some hella good highlight stuff that, like, raised his draft stock in traits and measurables and all the production to go with it. And then he just has a confidence problem and he can't catch. So first thing the Chargers do tonight, they run a little slide route. Remember the old TO, oh no, like the tight end, look out, where you just come all the way back across, and it ends up being a naked boot in this instance. And they throw a little, it's like me and you playing catch in the room. And now he's got confidence because he's catching the ball. He's wide open. He can body catch it. He can take it and he can go, and he can put a move on a dude and get 40 yards, and now he's rolling. As opposed to it being like a comeback or an Aaron Rodgers, pick your favorite, Devontae Adams back shoulder, like the highest difficult degree of. They showed that early. They hit the hitch. And then he just kind of disappeared. And one of the things I looked at on the Ceedee drops in particular, and on the last couple plays of the game, is there was almost like a decoy element. I think all the things that about Pickens coming out of Pittsburgh, 0, 1, 9. He doesn't run anything in the middle, and there's no in between with this guy. They were almost like out to prove that he could run a dig route. They were almost out to prove that he could be the switch guy. Like, I'm really, really going to be interested to see as much motion as they use. Turpin ran more motion last night than in any game in his career. And I'm interested to see how they do that with more than just the little move guys.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how George Pickens reacts. Like we heard from Nick Harris, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, who was at the game last night, covered the locker room, that, Pickens might have felt some kind of way about that. Like I'm here to produce. It's a contract year for him. There's a lot going on in there. So I think that one is huge. But I like what you said about the energy, the enthusiasm. Dak coming out, played one of his best games, trolling Jalen Carter. Like, there was some fun and some confidence and some confrontation in their energy. And then on defense, they showed more resiliency, more toughness than I'd seen. And maybe a lot of that is Kenny Clark and Solomon Thomas. Like, in the first half, they appeared to be the most tenacious run defenders on the Cowboys defensive line. And maybe that's because they're new.
Well, I mean, and Sam Williams and Neal, I mean, there's some dudes, right? I mean, they've got some grown ass men who can really wreck your game plan. And now they have depth. And Collinsworth just wanted to talk about Micah Parsons. Everyone wants to talk about Micah Parsons. They're going to get there collectively. They're going to get – there were a couple of plays where if Easy wasn't getting held or if he didn't slip, he was about to ruin Jalen Hurts' night. That dude is coming. Fowler's a vet. Fowler's a double-digit sack guy. Fowler's a former top 5 pick. He'll chill out. He'll stop dive bombing like a fucking angry bird on the goal line. And to that end, I missed something about you were talking about Murray and how bad the linebackers are, and I don't disagree with you. I mean, Sanborn's like 4.72, right? Sanborn is a try-hard. You call him a jobber. I think he's a little bit more than that. I think he's a legitimate, NFL football player in the right scheme, in the right system, playing downhill, like on rundowns. If you let him out there on third down, he's going to get exposed. There's still a place for that guy in the NFL, particularly if you're willing to play special teams. What's so frustrating about Murray is he made the one play early on the goal line. He made the one play that if he could do that 8 or 10 times a game, he'd be all pro. But he does it one time, and that's the only time.
He's just not aware enough and capable of getting his body in the right position to make the play. It's hard.
Now everyone – and really, the trolls were out hard for Leofau, right? He played like 6 or 7 snaps. The biggest thing of the whole night was the penalty that should have at least been offsetting on Cooper DeJean and him, because DeJean's helmet didn't come off, but DeJean was in there being a pain in the ass in his own right. And look,
it was a fight. That was a stupid foul, but I think they were trying to police both sides and even it up.
Yeah, and the refs. Look, the holding stuff is fascinating because you call holding on any play. Literally every play, either way. So it just comes down to, did your team win or did your team lose? And is it a Taylor Swift-influenced element? But like, all kidding aside about the Chiefs fraud dynasty, when you go through the way that the refs do, like, you have to, like you just said, let them police it as long as it's called the same way for both teams and the same way the whole game, so that when you come out and it's not like, oh, hey, they're letting them play, and then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter they're throwing flags, every other play. Or the other way around, where you come out and you're saying, hey, we're going to police this, and then by the fourth quarter it's like NFL blitz out there. So all in all, I watched the game twice. I watched it through the weather delay, and then I let it come on the regular TV version of it. Was like middle of the first quarter, and the next thing I know, it's like 4:00 in the morning. And if I didn't have to, get up and make sandwiches and get the kids off of school and go into an office and do something from 9 to 5, I probably would have watched it again. Like, it was that interesting of a game. Forget who you're rooting for. Forget the stats. Forget, like, when you really dig into all the storylines and all the elements that are in play, the rookie and the vet and everything in between, right? The defending champs and what this means for both of these teams moving forward. And then before the first play, we get the scripted. I mean, if you're ever going to believe the NFL is WWE, last night was everything.
I don't think I would ever believe the NFL is WWE. I think there's way too much to lose. The scripted idea is fun. But I don't know how that would improve the game script if Jalen Carter's out.
Yeah, well, that's the big thing going forward. The same way that we get to talk about Kenny Clark off the bus being a dude, making a difference. They're arguably the best at what he does in the league. Sports Illustrated had him Defensive Player of the Year, talking about postseason success, giving you the run up into the next season where, guys who maybe are a little bit less heralded start putting production on and then do it on the biggest stage in the biggest game. And you come into the next year and deliver again and kind of get the benefit of the doubt. And he's not even out there. So that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I can't wait. Obviously, there's 10, 11 more games before week 12. But that week 12, assuming everyone's health, assuming both teams are good, winning, like that showdown is going to be epic.
Is that when the Eagles come to AT&T?
Yeah.
Right on. Looking forward to that. What'd you think of the offensive scheme? I thought so much motion. If this is, the first 2 drives to get touchdowns and then field goal points on 3 straight drives out of the new offense, I think we're just on an absolute high. The second half was a come down. There was less motion. There was less creativity. I hope the offensive coaching staff is going back and reviewing this and saying, we don't need to break from this. I don't know why we did, but this is the way we create a little bit of indecision for a defense, give Dak quicker passing options, and maybe you get busted plays. I think first half an A+, 110 out of 100. Second half about a 70. Started to look like Mike McCarthy offense.
I felt like at one point I was texting my Kentucky thread. I was like, these dudes are out here calling plays like us playing PlayStation back in the day, because you're going like from 5 wide to the I formation. I was like, there's a fullback on the field. Like, they're dotting the I. And then, the next thing you see, even if it was like Javonte Williams as a wing, it was empty. And I love that, because when you have versatile personnel that allows you to be multiple within itself, that's another way that you can dictate terms. And like, a lot of people think that you just, there's trips, there's Trey, there's trio, and it's really just different ways to log 3 wide receivers. And one of the things that I loved about how they use Turpin and why motion is so important for him is because he's small. He's fast and he's small. So you don't want him to get jammed. And there were a couple of times where Collinsworth was talking about, and one of the Ceedee drops actually, he was talking about how Turpin didn't clear because he got jammed at the line of scrimmage. And I was like, dude, first of all, he's off the line of scrimmage. Then he goes in motion. Then they switch and he gets rubbed a little bit, but he doesn't get jammed. And I don't think he got jammed really all night. I think Turpin was running free. Turpin had a couple of instances where if Dak was able to kind of trust, and I think when they watch film, there's going to be some moments where when you get to reset, even if you have pressure, you know that your guy is going to win to a place, and you're either throwing it to him where he can get it or it's out of bounds, and that's it. Like there was a couple of rolls like that with Pickens and Turpin, and there was one play where like both of them had split on opposite sides of the field, and Dak got pressure because Booker was late on a twist. And that's one of the biggest things, going forward out of this, is that there's a real big opportunity when you get into the film to say, when we do this, this is how they respond. And this is how we are now going to respond in turn.
All right, leave a comment down below if you have thoughts on the Cowboys' Week 1 loss to the Eagles, 24-20. How optimistic or discouraged are you by it? Tell me what you think about the line of scrimmage play, because on defense, I think what we're seeing here is an ability to stop the run. Here's the stat: 1.5 yards per carry on 10 rushes inside the tackles for the Eagles. 5.71 on 14 rushes outside. But I think Osa, Clark, Solomon Thomas, some other guys chipping in. I think what you've done here is showed everybody how negligent you've been at nose tackle and how bad of a player Mozzie Smith is with Kenny Clark stepping in. And Osa's just an absolute man-child. And then the 3 on the inside offensively. And we were able to see the Cowboys get some physical runs, running on short yardage, running into the end zone twice for Javonte Williams. Those were absolutely huge. And he was part of that. But I think that Booker, BB, Smith trio on the inside is already paying off. What we need to see from this football team, and Mike McCarthy tried to do for 5 years and failed, is to become a physical bunch. And I thought last night was just a big step in that, trench warfare aspect of the game.
Don't forget that the outside runs include the quarterback stuff when your man coverage, backs are turned, and Jalen Hurts is doing Jalen Hurts stuff. I mean, Saquon was way better outside, but it wasn't like Saquon was ripping off 60 and 80-yard runs like he did to everyone last year, right? Like, they did a really nice job on that side, and they figured things out, like you said, 7 carries for 1 yard after the storm. The thing that I loved, the guys you already talked about, I don't think I need to piggyback except for to add, Steele was a guy I thought struggled. He got beat a few times, and, there's some real speed and there's some real athletes coming at you in those green jerseys. But then he goes viral because he ran down a safety and just absolutely threw him out of the club.
That was
And
awesome.
so even a guy who I thought struggled and who PFF is probably going to ding, a few points,
hammered him.
Then
worst graded offensive player.
As you're thinking about that, you're still seeing the effort, you're still seeing the attitude. Booker, like I said earlier, like even on plays where he got beat, or excuse me, maybe he gave up a pressure, he's going down on a knee and like wrestling dudes on the ground, right? So you like the dog in the fight, and when you have effort and when you have attitude, those are the only two things you control. You don't control the weather, you don't control the refs, you don't control so many things on any given Sunday. But if your effort and your attitude are good and you can count on that stuff, chances are at the end of the day, you're going to be able to count up the points and have more than the other team.
All right, New Bear, I've been looking for somebody to agree with me on this next topic all day long. I think I'm about 0 for 20,000 right now. Okay, just to prepare you.
Wow.
For the
Hashtag no pressure.
Right. So with about 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go, the Cowboys are, facing their last play. They need 3 yards for a first down. They throw it all the way down the field. I think it's exactly like Dez caught it in 2014. What are we doing? And I don't understand why this is a boring concept for people. We understand when a running back with 30 seconds to go can score and he lays down at the 1 yard line, right, to run out the clock, because the clock is almost as important as the scoreboard in the final 3 minutes. I would rather have the ball down 3 than being playing defense up 4. I think it's that big. And especially when you're dealing with the Super Bowl champs. But anyway, here's my take. When it's in that situation, they want you to take that shot. It's less than a 50% shot. Even if you get it, you still have to get in the end zone. But they know if you get it and score on that play, now we get the ball back with 2.5 minutes to go. We control our own destiny. The worst thing for the Eagles in that situation is for you to get 4 yards to keep the clock going. Now we're at the 2-minute warning at the 25-yard line. Now we get another first down. There's under a minute to go, and then we get it into the end zone and leave you 10 seconds of the game. I don't know why Tony Romo threw that ball in 2014, and I don't know why Dak Prescott threw that ball. Chris Collinsworth knew it was about to happen. We got man and Ceedee on the outside. It's going deep. 5 seconds later, the ball was in the air. I think Vic Fangio was the happiest man in that arena when that ball went in the air, because he knew if this is incomplete, we win, and if it is complete, they're going to score and give us the ball back with enough time for us to go down there and do it. So, I guess what I would do is, if you realize that look is happening and you're going to Ceedee Lamb, I don't know if you bang a timeout there, but if I'm shoddy and we're plus 15 seconds, then I can tell Dak, do not throw that long ball. Ceedee is a decoy to stretch the defense. We're going to call another play. You're going to scramble, but we don't need to put this ball in the air. Putting the ball in the air, even if you score, I don't know if you're a greater than 50% chance to win in the game.
So your question is about throwing a 4-yard route on 3rd and 3 or 4th and whatever it is.
4th and 3, a 40-yard ball.
Yeah.
What are the chances of that being completed? I would say under 35% for sure, maybe around 25.
So there were several instances throughout the night where Dak only had eyes for one guy, and Turpin is wide ass open underneath. He's a gunslinger, man. That's the mentality. And if his guy or one of his guys, because let's be honest, he trusts 3, 4, 5 guys out there. And if he trusts you and he makes the pre-snap read, and then they don't disguise it and change after that ball snapped, he's going to take that shot. He never saw the safety on the ball. That was a hospital ball to Fergie. So Ernie, the Cowboys fan, and Mosher and all the guys who were talking about how the clip that was going viral about how well Dak threw it last night, true. And the ball he threw to Ferguson is about as tight as you could throw a spiral. John Facenda couldn't have he couldn't have asked for a better ball to narrate.
Yeah, but you're asking, I don't think that was an easy catch. You're asking a tight end to dive.
That's what I'm saying. That was a hospital ball. That was not a good throw. And
No.
everyone was like this. Let's give him his flowers.
You got to
today.
catch that ball. No,
Yeah.
no.
And I was like,
catches that more than half the time.
Ferguson's lucky he's not in the hospital. Like that was, I mean, when you go through the machinations of how Dak Prescott plays quarterback, it used to be touchdown, first down, get down. Now it's basically touchdown, get down. And what I'm going to be curious to see is how Shoddy teaches him with the scheme, with the motion, with Pickens, with these guys who can win more than just CeeDee Lamb being the one guy you can always count on, is how do they go forward and get him to really go through the progressions to see the whole field, because there were dudes running wide open last night and they were shorter routes and then it's run after the catch. And that's the thing that they got to drill into his head, is that at this stage in his career, and especially for the regular season, it's not just take what the defense gives you, because with guys like Pickens and Lamb, it is always bleeping open. And quite frankly, they have to find more ways to get Pickens the ball, even if it's just go balls and you throw 2 or 3 of those and you only complete one. You have to do it because you have to take the top off the defense, just like what you're talking about, so that when you come out on 4th and 3, they're expecting that. And then you get Turpin on a little yo-yo or a whip, right? Or whoever it is, whoever's going to be the guy, Fergie, getting his Travis Kelce on. That's going to be the evolution of this thing. Is we know Ceedee can win deep now. We know he's shallow cross God. We know Pickens can go 0-1-9. How do you best utilize some of these other guys?
Yeah, and I think that has to come down to the scheme and give Dak very clear reads very early in the play. And if it's not there, then we're going somewhere else. I mean, he's not the worst quarterback, I think, for gunslinging and refusing to check down, refusing to take what the defense gives. I think for him, it's just a mechanical issue of, can my eyes tell my brain to tell my arm, as I'm tracking all my offensive players and defensive players. I mean, there's just it's a very, very special skill set that allows a guy to get to his 3rd and 4th progressions and see all of the defenders at the same time. I think it's very difficult. So I think when Dak locks on, it's because he has a hard time going from here over to here and then back to here and quickly estimating how everybody has changed in that half second that it took to look away. Sometimes he's really good at it, though. So to your point, I think that's the biggest challenge for Schottenheimer relative to Dak, is how do we get the chains moving and an efficient on-time offense without him running the ball? And I think that has to come back to the running game for me. And it might sound like I'm beating a dead horse. I feel like I've been talking about this for 5 years, really, since Zeke got washed up. I've been talking about this. Get a damn good running game, or you're kind of throwing Dak to the wolves, because there's just only a few guys in the league at any time that can look down there into that fog of war and consistently make quality decisions that don't end up in turnovers.
Well, I think you have to don't forget, try to remember that he was basically Black Tim Tebow. Like, he was running the same offense. He was a 1,000-yard rusher in college. And you talk all the time about how much he ran when he was a much younger man. And I think I've argued that he really only ran about 75, 78 times a year. It wasn't the volume. It was the impact and when he did it and what he could do when he had to go do it. His muscle memory is, I mean, if he's 32 years old, it's probably 27, 28 years of, I have the ability to go Mahomes. Like, Mahomes isn't that fast, but Mahomes has the ability to go do his little wiggly butt and go get the first down, right? What's that?
He's nifty.
He's nifty. And dad bod forever. And when you think about what Dak was, Dak was like Josh Allen at one point in his life. And somewhere in his DNA, that's still there. Like, I can escape. I can, if I absolutely have to, and the body just
the only reason he was a good quarterback in college, right?
Right.
It's the only reason he was drafted in the 4th round was because of running. I don't know if you can go from being a running quarterback to a non-running quarterback ever.
But what I'm saying, though, is that the reason Dak went back for his senior year, and the reason he was so good as a rookie and everyone was so surprised and I wasn't, and the reason that I think he's way better than anyone gives him credit for, and the disrespect for him is so out of control is that just like Tom Brady, when you protect him, who really throws the ball better than he does? When it's clean and it's on time and it's on target. I'm not talking about off script. I'm not talking about the supernatural. What's the Ryan Clark argument du jour right now? The you are or you are not a generational talent. Is Dak Prescott a generational talent? No. But is Dak Prescott a B plus or an A minus at every single thing that you would ask a quarterback to do? He's right there. He has the ability to do all the things, and he has a little bit less of the athletic ability, has a little bit more of the mental reps and the acuity that goes with. You're talking about the spatial awareness, the processing. Maybe it's a Pentium instead of a M4 or whatever Apple's on these days. But when it's clean, and I was watching this last night, I was rage texting you that like when he gets to go 3-5-7 and pop, I would take him over anyone but those first 4, 5, 6 guys. He's right there at the top of that next tier, and it's just like 07 and 11
off script. I mean, so much of the league is what happens when it breaks down.
Now, yes, because it's flag football, it's recess, it's backyard more than anything, and the rule changes and the strike zones, and no one's getting hit, and there's no fear. There's no more Michael Irvin run the slant or you're going back to the ghetto. Like you saw that come out today, right? Like why'd you run the bang 8? Because if I didn't do that, we were going back to the hood. Like that doesn't exist anymore. There's no fear of anybody. Like Mahomes uses that to his advantage. He tiptoes and pretends like he's going to go out of bounds, and then if you breathe on him, it's 15 more yards. So, as we go through this thing with Dak, the on time and on target stuff is different with him than it is with other guys like Mahomes, like even Burrow, like Herbert moving around cleaner in week 1, but he's looking like he's very fit and very fluid. Those guys with young legs or the nifty, crafty, not going to blow by anybody, but I can run 4.8 all day and get the angle. And oh, by the way, here's a pump fake. Dak doesn't have any of that. And we don't want Dak to have any of that until it's NFC Championship, Super Bowl level, like 2-minute drill, and you got to have it. And it's John Elway helicopter, and there's no other choice. It has to be about, to your point, the scheme, the concept, I'm not saying like dumb it down and make it a half field read, but what I am saying is if you come out and it's blitz and it's Pickens one-on-one, whether it's the boundary or the field, you let that sucker go. If you come out and this is what's called, where's Jaden Blue? Like where are your playmakers? Turpin is clearing all the way on a deep cross to the other side. If you get in trouble, you throw that ball 32 by 25, and it either hits the sticks on his fingertips or it's out of bounds and we move on to the next play. Like there are ways that you are going to have to manage him, especially if you don't want to kick the can on his contract.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to that running game. I think that's how you get it. Like the Cowboys had to stack the box against Saquon Barkley last night a ton of times. I think on 66% of his runs, higher than any number from last year. Can you create that sort of a deal? And now I think you'll see Dak absolutely carve the league up and have a big win total season like he did his rookie year. I just think once you allow the defense to only rush 4 because they know your running game can't beat you, and we have at least 6 guys, maybe 7 guys back, that just raises the level of difficulty. And that is why, New Bear, so much. I mean, I know Dak had a great drive last year to beat the Steelers, but really since the 49ers loss after the 2021 season, I think you could count like the fourth quarter drives on one hand that Dak Prescott has had to take the lead or win the game. It's just it's turned into turnover on down central so often. Yeah. So, but just to kind of reset the topic of the video, it's not about what the Cowboys can't do. I think they're not a contender right now. If Jerry Jones wanted to trade the picks, if he wanted to spend some money, if he wanted to spend that money that he was going to give Micah Parsons out in the trade market and use the first round picks to go get players, get a linebacker. Maybe get a star running back. I think they could really use an actual slot receiver. like a Cole Beasley type of guy. I don't think they really have enough at tight end. They have some big guys, and Jake Ferguson's kind of a big play tight end, but he's not that reliable middle of the field guy who's going to find the soft spots and zones like Dalton Schultz and Jason Witten did so well early in Dak's career. So, I think there's 2 or 3 things that I would need to see solved before I could pick this team to do much better. But, based on last night, I think the Giants are in for a long night. I think the Bears are in trouble. All of these teams that we wondered, how are the Cowboys going to do against this non-playoff team, fill in the blank from last year? They might be on the ropes because of how bad they looked last year. I think they showed enough on both sides of the ball last year to think this is a 9-win team, maybe 10 or 11 if they get some more turnover luck.
So you said something earlier in the show where you were talking about the same kind of thing with what was left. Ceedee Lamb, this is a guy you're not going to have to worry about. He made the mistakes last night. This isn't going to be something that over the course of the year, it's not going to turn into TO where he has a 14, 16, 18 drop season, right? And you look at the numbers from last night, and Dak's numbers aren't great, but there's also over 100 yards of drops, right? And then, oh, by the way, they went for 5.4 yards a carry on 22 carries. They went for 119 yards rushing the ball. And I thought Javonte Williams should have had 20 carries himself. He had it going. Remember, some of that stuff gets compressed in the red zone, right? So if you have a 1-yard touchdown, it's awesome for fantasy, but it sucks for yards.
Just not that many drives. Like, did the teams have the ball like 7 or 8 times each?
Well, they scored 7 times in a row between them, right? And to open, and then you had the Pickens penalty and the fumble after the long run that Jaden Blue would have scored on. So here's what's really interesting: where you talk about best loss ever. Is this the best week 1 loss ever? If Jaden Blue would have scored and they lose, and you're talking about speed as opposed to how slow Miles Sanders is. Or there isn't that fumble that takes that thing away, or Ceedee does catch the ball and it comes down to a blocked field goal, and it's even more acute the way this thing went down. No, throw all that stuff out, because what you said was Ceedee Lamb isn't going to make these mistakes, and everyone else is going to get better. So when you start talking about Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, the Giants might suck this year, but they're going to make Sunday hell for just about everybody that they play. So Booker better pack a lunch. And if they show up and they walk the New York Football Giants, and then Ben Johnson's reinvigorated generational hero, Caleb Williams and company, and you start going through this schedule, right? And you're going to get to see everyone's favorite son, right? And the Packers, and we're going to go through this thing all the way to the bye. And we've been saying they got to be 6-4, 7-3, 8-2 based on what they have coming out of it. I think we're in agreement here that they have, based on what they showed last night, they have everything they need to do that. They have everything they need to put themselves in a position to come out of that bye fresh and make a run at the NFC East.
Trayvon Diggs showed last night he's healthy enough. He's 100% enough to be their best cover corner. And Kenny Clark was such an impact there on the defensive line. Those are 2 things we didn't know that we had in Oxnard, California. Just a week ago, we didn't think either of these guys was going to be planned. So, I think the Giants are going to have a hard time scoring. I think the Bears should have a hard time scoring. A lot of these teams, the Jets on the schedule, the Cowboys are going to, I believe, continue their track record over the last decade of kind of feasting on those below 500 teams and maybe struggling against playoff teams. But I think the Cowboys could beat the Eagles. I think they're going to sweep Washington. Washington, to me, is the biggest fraud in the entire NFL here in 2025. Luckiest team of 2024 with their 1-score games, and just their trench play is atrocious on both sides. They can barely rush the passer. They can't really block. They don't have much of a running game other than Jaden Daniels. So, I think that's your sophomore slump a situation right there. But, I want to be kind of sober about last night. I think the Eagles players might have gotten a little bit wrapped up in their championship. I think they were overconfident. I think they felt like we're the champs. We peed on everybody last January into December. Nobody can touch us. And they came out there with that attitude, like, we're going to spit on you and walk all over you. And it backfired on them to the tune of how many penalty yards did they have? Like, if you take out those even half those penalty yards, I don't know if the Cowboys are actually, in that game to the extent that they were last night.
Well, I think they should have won going away. I honestly, the thing about last night that
going away.
the Cowboys should have beat the Eagles last night going away. They if they don't bog down in the red zone, they don't turn the ball over in the red zone, and then they come out with their hair on fire. Jalen Hurts had barely more yards per passing attempt than the Cowboys had running. Like it was an ugly game.
As you were watching that game, you felt like the Cowboys were getting the best of the Eagles. The Eagles were clearly the better team last night.
I'm talking about circumstances and taking advantage of the opportunities. Like the way that game played out, that the Cowboys left a shit ton on the field where, I mean, the Eagles were just kind of playing with their food is what it felt like. And the biggest missed opportunity is not capitalizing on the ones that are presented to you. And just, I mean, the Miles Sanders, if that's Jaden Blue, that's a touchdown. And oh, by the way, even the Pickens thing, which I don't understand how that got called the way it got called, like call holding, call whatever, but like so much stuff happens, and obviously that's a reputation thing, and he's going to have to
line thing.
Yeah. And but even with that, like that's points off the board, not because of George Pickens, but because of the fumble. Like George Pickens didn't fumble, right? Like we go through the machinations of breaking down this game, and at the end of the day, you're walking away where the guy who, lit the world on fire last year goes for 60 yards on 18 carries. Saquon Barkley averaged 3.3 a carry, right? Hurts 62 on 14 carries. Eagles had 158 yards rushing. They had damn near 40 carries. They were 4.2 a carry. Cowboys were 5.4 a carry. And that includes the goal line stuff where Williams is getting docked because they're banging it in from the one. Prescott, Ceedee Lamb leave over 100 yards at least. At least. Dak should have had a 300-yard night and a couple of tutties, and we should be talking about Ceedee Lamb having a 50-burger in fantasy leagues this week. And instead, we're talking about how this dude can't catch a cold. All pro, can't catch a cold. I don't understand. Like watching the game last night and then picking up the Sports Illustrated and going, oh yeah, that's right. They have them losing to Josh Allen. Like I did not feel like the Eagles were a Super Bowl team. I did not feel. I felt even Jalen Carter is a huge difference. So let's not underestimate the fact how good that dude is, how disruptive that dude is, especially if Jordan Davis is actually in shape, because those two dudes to each other are nightmare fuel. And Jordan Davis played really well last night and acquitted himself even without his running buddy. When you take Jalen Carter off the field and you don't get the win, that in and of itself is like gut punch level, compound loss. Then you add all the other things that go into it about the drops and the penalties and the way that you beat yourselves. You got Jerry and Shoddy and everyone else going to the podium talking about how good we feel and how this feels different. But that's still hope. You're still hoping Diggs's knee holds up. You're still hoping that these guys are going to be able to come to play in week 12 when they do get to see Jalen Carter. Hell, week 2 here when you get to see Burns and Abdul Carter. So as we go through this week, I said this all off season. I said it a couple weeks ago. If you go out and you give the Eagles hell and you come up just a little bit short, that's great. We're going to have hope. We're going to be full of piss and vinegar. You go into week 2. Week 2 is the biggest game of this season. Because if you go play the Giants and you start the season 0-2 and you lose to that dog dirt of a franchise, you are behind the sticks for the rest of the season.
And I can't eliminate that. I agree with everything you said. It is hope. And on the other side of hope is the downside. And the downside could be losing to the Giants. And the Eagles were drunk. They were penalized. Jalen Carter got kicked out. They're actually way better than you. That's a potential reality. And we won't really feel like we have a strong handle on who these Cowboys are for probably a month or 6 weeks or so. But what we did get confirmed last night is it's not as bad as it was last year. It's not a continuation of last year. There were a lot of teams that missed the playoffs last year. They're going to show up week 1, and in their post-game show, it's going to be about like, okay, maybe they can get better in 2026, but this is like freaking Groundhog's Day around here. And that might be the New York Giants. That might be the Chicago Bears. And we'll see in the next couple of weeks how that happens. But I felt like last night was a massive relief because we found out everything that Shotty's been talking about, the culture, the effort, the enthusiasm to go out there and play, like all of that was on display last night. And, as a result of that, I think hope's the right word. I don't think they're contenders this year, but I think they could make the playoffs. I think they could win the division if Philly is as bad as what they showed last night. But this really is about growing long term. Once you get the offensive line, the linebackers, the right running back in the mix, I think you're looking at a team like 1991 Cowboys. Jimmy didn't show up and take you right to the promised land, but there were signs that every year was incrementally better. But the first thing you had to do is put your foot down and say, we're not that 1-15 team. And maybe that's, what this year is going to be. Okay, the Cowboys lost to the Buccaneers 31-29 in week 1 of the 2021 NFL season. And that might be the other game that's in contention for best week 1 loss in recent Cowboys memory. But the difference there was you were coming off of a relatively more success. And then, no, you weren't, were you? That was coming off of 2020. So actually, those actually might be tied. You might actually be tied with the 2021 game and the 2025 game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here going, how much worse could they have played, right? So if Jalen Carter would have played and he would have made Tyler Booker look like a rookie, and we're talking about Tyler Booker and how much he has to grow in order to be all-pro, and how he's light years away, maybe 2 or 3 years away, and they wasted a pick at 12 with this guard who can't run. Instead of that, what we have is Tyler Booker's fight. The dog in Tyler Booker. 52 put his face in the fan. 52 was pushing dudes around. Same way with the other Tyler, Guyton. Same way with him. And what a comeback from him. Like, we didn't think we were going to see him for several weeks. You talk about grit, perseverance, just to get out there and then to be right. He looked long, he looked fit, and he was right for the fight all night. And this is going to be really interesting this week because this is going to be a test. Russ is going to say all the right things. They've got a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield. Malik Neighbors might be the best receiver in football that nobody's talking about. He led everything last year that wasn't Jamar Chase winning the Triple Crown. It was Malik Neighbors. And he's one of those dudes that, that's why you talk about LSU being wide receiver U. He's as good as all those other dudes. So Diggs doesn't get a week off. Bland doesn't get a week off. They're going to get tested week in and week out. And then you look at this thing, and we keep talking about the gauntlet that's, week 12 through 17. How about not sleeping on, oh, yeah, there's Carolina, both New York teams. The Jets are terrible. Panthers are going to Panther. The Green Bay's a revenge game. You just said we're going to beat you said they're going to sweep Washington, right? Dude, Denver and Arizona are waiting out there before the bye. Denver's going to be really good. You expect Arizona to be pretty damn good, playoff contender in their own right. So it's not just like, oh, hey, look at this compressed schedule when we get to the holidays and we get to see Philly again and Kansas City and Detroit, Minnesota, the Chargers, Washington. Like, there's a lot of work to do way before then. And every week is going to be a different kind of test.
It will. And we'll be back later this week to preview that Giants game with you. Again, how about WOW, brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Link in the description, up to $250 in bonus bets. You're going to love Bet Online. For New Bear, I'm Dawson. Till next time, how about WOW?